So, I know that you were making mini comics,
Mhm.
uh, and it sounds like you would go to little local shows, get tables,
Um,
or
yeah, I really only went to Ape, which is a show we had in San Francisco. Did you used to go to that?
yes.
Yeah, so that was the Alternative Press Expo, and it would happen in San Francisco when I went. And it was super fun. And that's where I met like Tin and Jesse Reclaw and Gene and all those guys. Was sort of through Ape. Well, I met them and then yeah, through Ape basically. And then I would sell the books at like on consignment. Did you ever do that?
A couple local shops.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would do the same thing. I would just like take my books around and like see like what store would like keep it and give me 50 cents after I sold a book. Like it was fun. I mean, it was super fun because I had, my retail jobs keeping me going and then I would sell my little mini comics or I was, teaching.
Did you just look at it as a hobby at that point?
I don't know what I looked at it as. It was like definitely like the thing I did. Like I did it a lot and but I was never confident enough to like I didn't know how to get my mind around making a longer book. That was I didn't even think about doing that really because I was like, oh, like I maybe it's low self-esteem. I don't know, but like who no one's gonna publish me. So I just sort of would make these little easily attainable mini comics and most of them didn't relate to each other. There's one little series that kind of goes together. Um uh but and then I had kids and that kind of put a damper in my ability to make a lot of stuff.
I guess it was a bit of a social thing too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I would draw. So at first I was drawing with my friend. I lived in New York for a couple of years after college, and that's where my friend from high school, Jacob, lived. And he and I would draw and make comics, and that's really all we did. We weren't big partiers, so it was mostly just sort of drawing and making these little comics. So I sold them in New York a little bit, which was fun. And then I moved back to California in 2004 and was just drawing by myself until I met Tin Pham in 2005. And then we started drawing every Wednesday night on Vermont Avenue in Oakland. And we would just draw and then make our little comics. And it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Um,
Yeah.
so you brought up family, and
Hmm.
I'm trying to think. I was married when I first started publishing my comics.
Okay.
My first son was born 2 years in,
Uh-huh.
and my wife had been going to all the shows with me and giving me so much support. And after I would say about a year, we decided that was too hard for her to
Yeah.
be coming and supporting
Yeah.
and the kids.
Yeah.
So how did that affect your art?
Yeah, so like I wasn't going anywhere really because they were just local comics. And again, I just never even considered the option. But I made like basically like about a comic a year for like 10 years, a little mini comic. So it wasn't they're short. It was not like super impressive. They're like, little like 16-page things or something.
But
Um,
that's how you build a body of work, right? Even if you
yeah, yeah. And it was just sort of like, I had work, so it wasn't like I needed money or anything. It was just sort of like this is the art I do. And then we would do lots of like t-shirts and posters, and I would do lots of like other art things. Um, and then I had my first kid in 2012, and I made one comic after she was born just to sort of prove to myself I could do it. It was a tiny little comic. That's like probably like 3 by 4 inches or something. It was like a really small comic. They're little ink washes, and they're all. It's supposed to look like a person's life told through photo booth photos. So it starts with this man, like he's a little boy with his parents, and then slowly goes through his life, and like as he has major moments in his life. Um, that was the last comic I did, like, and so I did that one, and I like did one ape. Like, and I was like, I got to take a break. Like, this is too crazy because I was a full-time high school teacher. I had this kid. 2.5 years later, we had a second kid, and I was just like, I can't. I can't do this.
We're on the same schedule. My
Yeah,
second kid was 2.5 years later. They wound up
yeah,
being
it's
3 school years apart,
yes,
but
yeah.
same.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's a nice, I find it to be a nice age difference for us. I don't know about you. Um,
I'm sad the way our high schools are here. The middle school is sixth, seventh,
oh,
or
I
no,
know.
seventh, eighth, ninth, and then high school is 10th, 11th, 12th. So the way they're
Oh,
spaced, they never saw each other in school again after elementary school, and
oh, wow.
I
Ours are
kind of
different here. I think,
yeah.
yeah, ours is sixth, seventh, eighth for middle school and then ninth through 12th. So they'll have 1 year of high school together.
Yeah, and that's how I was with my sister growing up, and
Yeah.
I I'm sad that they'll miss not
Yeah.
having the younger brother at school and the older brother at school,
Yeah. Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
have that experience. But on the other hand, they're their own people,
Right.
on their
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
terms. So
Yeah. No, there'll be positive and negatives, right, for either side.
yeah.
Yeah, my husband also teaches art actually where I teach. And so there'll be 1 year when all four of us will be at school together.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's going to be kind of crazy.
So getting back to the having kids and the art just stopped when you've got kids. There's just too much going on to
Yeah.
just survive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was just, yeah, I just had to give myself a break on something. And so I would do other little art projects, but I wasn't doing like comics I think I started Ephemera in 2020. So I guess I took like a 8 year break.
And I saw that you tried to get a little something a day going online, and then that
Oh
kind
yeah.
of led to ephemera, right?
Yeah. So,
Making the decision.
like the first day at least where I live in Oakland, where they announced we're going on lockdown, I texted Tin Pham, who you can see is my other best friend, Chris Wisnia. Don't worry. And I was like, hey, let's do a daily comic for this 2 weeks that will be on lockdown. Like that'll be like a fun little project for us. And he was like, yeah, that'll be so fun. And so, of course, we didn't know it was going to turn into a very long lockdown. And so we did 100 days, and it was like a really good practice. And it really got me back into drawing comics. And it was great. It was great because it was like you just had to come up with something. Sometimes they would be silly, sometimes they would be serious because there was a lot of serious stuff happening in 2020. And sometimes there's just sort of a range, and it was really fun. It got me into the practice, and then I was like losing my mind because it was also like it was like a blessing and a curse. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So then once I stopped, and Tin and I were both teaching from the school, so we basically we would go to work. We really lucked out on that front, where we would go to work, teach our Zoom classes, and then just have the school to ourselves. Basically, there's like maybe 7 other people on campus. And then we just decided to both write these memoirs, because he also had a book that came out this year called Family Style. It's amazing. You should buy it if you haven't gotten it.
It is a fantastic book.
Yeah.
I love, first of all, that you guys have the support of each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a weightlifting partner, right? Or
Yeah.
just someone to go to the gym every day and put
Yeah.
that time in, right? And
No, it's so true. Yeah. Just someone to like bounce ideas off of that you trust, who will tell you when it's a bad idea or like when it's a really good idea. Like that's so helpful. Um,
but also just to come on, we get
yeah.
out of bed. We gotta
Yeah.
go do this
We're drawing
again
right now
today.
because it's like you see them drawing, you're like, oh, all right, I can do it. It's yeah. So yeah, totally. Just to like, yeah, have that impetus was great.
That
Yeah.
was a big help to me when I decided I wanted to go comics. Finding a kind of community
Yeah.
that like could give feedback, and that you
Yeah.
wanted to keep producing.
Yeah.
You didn't want to drag behind with
Yeah. And
the group.
I feel like also with comics, like, um, I don't know if it's like this in other industries, but like I feel like it's not like a finite amount of success. Like if Tin does better, Jean does better, if you do better, if I do better, like that helps that helps us all. Like making comics more of like a thing, especially for like adult comics. It only makes it better for everyone. So it's not like, well, if Chris does well, then I can't do well. It's like, it's just like, it's like, I want everyone to do great so that everyone starts reading more comic books. So
Yeah.
I really like that about it too, that it doesn't feel competitive. It feels like we're all in it, playing a community game.
We're not all eating from the same bowl of fruit, and there's
Yeah.
only so much fruit. We're all
Yeah.
uh, growing a tree that produces
Yeah.
fruit to attract
Yeah.
bigger audiences into the industry, I guess.
Yeah, totally. So I
So
feel like, so that I think is something else that really appeals to me about it, that it doesn't feel like there's a zero sum game.
mhm. And a lot of people they'll say to me, "Oh, you make comics. I've got an idea," and I always think, "Well, then do it." And they say,
Yeah, do
"Yeah,
it.
yeah, I
Right.
should." Okay, do it.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Well, you do the first page. Have you
Yeah.
done that?
Yeah.
Do
I know.
that.
I feel the same way. Someone was once saying, like, don't worry about telling people your ideas, because the chance that someone will actually do anything with it is so slim. So I was like, oh well, that's nice to know that I don't have to keep this cool idea that I have to myself, because it's like no one's gonna do it. So
They've got their own ideas that they're excited to try and do.
yeah, or they're not gonna do it. So it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. So you were kind of out in the ether, and were you doing any kind of web comics or posting stuff on your social media?
Just on Instagram. I
Yeah.
mean, I would just do those, I did those daily comics, and I would post like art that I did, but mostly my Instagram for a long time was just like pictures of my kid or like food or like plants that I like.
See, and this is kind of what I was trying to get at earlier, where like
Yeah.
that's like the art, but not
Yeah.
necessarily the comics, where
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
being artistic.
Yeah. I like to make things. So I also like, I sew and I cook and I garden, and I'm like interested. I just like to learn how to do things and make them. So like, um, so comics do kind of fall under that umbrella for me. I just like to make things. I like to feel productive. I don't
Yeah.
know, but do you feel like it's like that, or is it like a separate thing for you?
Um, I think this is my comics.
Hmm.
I do my music, I do my
Yeah.
comics. Um,
Yeah.
I do these interviews, and they all feel kind of like separate outlets
Hmm.
of things I'm interested in exploring, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like that's cool though. Like, yeah, but it's the same idea though. It's like you're like making things. You like to feel like you're like producing
Yeah,
stuff into the world.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So how did you wind up with Fantagraphics?
So so I had worked on Ephemera, and I had about 50 pages done. I had like the first chapter done. And then I felt like, okay, like I think that this is enough, and that I can start thinking about looking for a publisher. And I've never had a publisher before, but I do have a lot of, I have these friends in the industry, so they could kind of coach me along. So a couple of big factors of what helped me is Jean Yang really helped me be like, here's what they want to see. They want to see a good sample of your work. Like they really want to know what it's going to like look and feel like. And then they need to know that you can get from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. Because a lot of people can start a story, but ending a story is really hard. He's like, so you want to be able to fit that whole story on one written out page. You can't, like, one page. No one wants to read more than a page. So he was like, have your sample work, have that one page, and then have like a log line, which is like an elevator pitch. So one or two sentences, here's the book. So that was helpful. So I wrote it out. I did have a friend of mine, and she's done a lot of like copy editing, and she's done a lot of writing. And I had her look at the story, and she actually was really helpful with the story structure. So it was nice to have someone outside of comics just look at the story structure and be like, and she actually had me flip the second and third chapters, which I think really is what makes the book much more compelling, because I was going to have it end with what happens in the second chapter, but it's like way more interesting to have it the way that it is. And so I do feel like I have to credit her with that really brilliant suggestion.
Just this weekend, I was telling a friend how much trouble I was having, and talking with him, we came to that exact same solution.
Yeah.
And it just kind of makes you go, boom.
No, it blows your mind.
Oh,
You can do that.
yeah,
That's how I felt when she
yeah,
suggested it. I was like, you can
yeah.
just do that. You can just totally like change things. So I don't know. I recommend like having people from different, from even outside comics, or I don't know, someone whose opinion you trust, like look at your work and just come up with maybe there are ideas that totally you never would have even in a million years like thought you could do. Yeah, so I had that. And then I talked to another friend who is she's a literary agent. I think that's what her job is. I don't know what anyone's job is. Anyways, unless they like teach or draw, I don't know, understand word jobs. But she helped me package it. So she was like, you know what, you really want to like sell it. So like I made it into this really nice looking package where I illustrated every page, and I'd be like, why would we need this book, and where would it go on a shelf? And each one had like a little illustration. I made this like dope little package. Had my one sheet, had my 50 pages. And
What
then I
I like
started,
about that is you're telling them, look, this is what it's going to be.
yeah, you really get the feel, even from just the like, hey, I'm Briana Loewinsohn and I'm a cartoonist, and it would have a little illustration. So it was like you're really getting a feel of the book. I did it all in the style of the book. So I think that that was a really brilliant suggestion. And then I sent it around to like anyone who gave me their information. So I got a bunch of editors that I could send it to. I didn't have an agent because I just have people who know, like I know all these people who know editors, and they're like, oh yeah, they're happy to look at it. So I sent it to a bunch of places. A lot of my friends do like YA stuff. And so they were sort of like, we do YA stuff. This is definitely for adults, but thank you so much, And then I got 3 offers, which was exciting. And then, but Fantagraphics was the one that I was like, what? Like that I was just, I mean, all of them were great. And like, I respect all the publishers so much. I was just like, the most excited, and I think fit with the vibe of the book the best was Fantagraphics. Just like they've always been like sort of for me like the gold standard of indie comics. So it was great.
Did you always know you wanted a publisher as opposed to just putting it out yourself?
Yeah,
That
like
was
I
the
think
goal.
I was happy to make it myself when I was just doing like go to the Kinkos and photocopy it and stuff like that, because that to me is a totally different entity. But I just wasn't super interested in self-publishing. It was sort of like I was sort of either or. I either want to make just little things that I kind of photocopy and have in my house, or I want a publisher. I was like, this is where I'm at in my life. Also, I was just like, I don't need to be stressing about, well, now I have 4,000 copies of this book that I now have to sell. Like I didn't want, that's like a stress I'm not interested in. Like I'd rather have no one publish it than deal with that. And that's just for me, and where I'm at. So yeah, so that's why I was like, nope, it's publishing or nothing. Because if I didn't do that, I would just have it be like, I would have just done it as a web comic and just like posted it on the internet.
I was going to ask if you would have finished it. So I'm glad.
Yeah. I was pretty compelled to finish it at that point. So I was still working on it even while I was like wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So this next question is just something I've been thinking about as I'm reading more memoirs with the group of people I've started meeting, going on
Yeah.
with signings with Fantagraphics, and the memoir is a foreign thing to me,
Yeah.
who just does these, these stories or these stories,
Yeah.
and I'm getting kind of interested in the fiction of
Hmm.
memoirs, right?
Hmm.
It's a reality maybe of emotion
Yeah.
or of metaphorical or visual beauty in reality, and I'm realizing there's definitely a reality to your story, but you made some decisions for it to very much not be reality too, and yet
Right.
to still call it a memoir. And I'm curious about just generally how how does that play into what even as the elevator pitch,
Hmm.
I've created you
Yeah.
I've created a story about my relationship with my mother who suffers from mental illness.
Hmm.
um, that that kind of makes a reality of you as a storyteller. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where people now say, "Oh, Briana is that person.
Yeah.
You've created a persona.
Yeah.
We don't always think of that as autobiography writers, uh, and I don't
Hmm.
even know if this is a question. It's just something I've been thinking about as I'm experiencing these stories, and I'm curious as a creator if you're even thinking about these things at all.
Yeah, no, I think about it a lot. I had a lot of insecurity about that with this book because I would call it a memoir versus an autobiography. Like I think of autobiography more as like on June 11th, 1983, like this happened. And for me, the story I was telling and the way I was telling it was I took a lot of artistic liberties in telling the story, but I wanted something that felt really true to myself. And I felt like I couldn't be true and honest if I made it super realistic. That just wasn't the story I wanted to tell. I felt like because my relationship with my mom was so complicated, the idea of drawing her was like is like very upsetting to me. And it's also made me feel like, well, it doesn't really, if it didn't look exactly like her, it was going to make me feel crazy. Like I just like the thought of drawing her, first of all, made me sick. And second of all, I just kept being like, but what would she wear? But I was just like, was so stuck on the details. It was like,
Pressure of accuracy, right?
yeah, I was like, if I'm
Yeah.
going to tell it this way, and then it's also like my life, like I didn't want to tell that. Like it was just like I didn't want to show some of the details, and I didn't want to show. But that's just not what I was interested in showing. It felt too personal, even though the feelings are very personal. The literal details to me felt much more intimate. I don't know why that is, but it gave me a little bit of once I sort of like realized that I could draw it differently than how it looked, then I was like, oh, I feel like I can fully honestly tell how my feelings were as a child. And some of the events totally are real. And then some are real events that are taken out of place. And then some, my mother died when I was older. But I have, spoiler alert, have it take place when I was little. But it could be interpreted that she didn't die. It could be interpreted that she passed out. It's just sort of like you can't, it's a little ambiguous, and I like the ambiguity of that. Uh, so once I took it out of reality, then I felt super comfortable and happy to tell the story. And then I felt really at home. But there are people who are like, well, this isn't, there was one publisher that was like, this isn't a memoir. And I was like, okay. So, um, so yeah. But I felt like if it was a prose book that was written as poetry, and I don't mean to sound obnoxious, but it's like if like, or even the beginning of like a portrait of the artist as a young man is like nonsense words. It's like, why can't I do that? Like, I don't know. Once I sort of just gave myself permission that it's like, I can tell this however I want to tell it. Like, like it doesn't, there are no rules about this. Then I felt totally comfortable with it. But I do agree that there's like weird blurry lines in what is memoir and what is not memoir. But I think it's kind of maybe the author's discretion. I don't know.
And then I guess that can potentially lead to confusion of
Mm-hmm.
the reader,
Yeah.
or disappointment of the reader.
Right.
Uh,
Totally.
but,
Yeah.
but when you look at it as a work
Yeah.
of
They're
art,
like, yeah.
yeah. My wife
Right. Yeah.
has a master's in psychology, and
Mm-hmm.
she will sometimes, she's an extrovert, and she'll sometimes uh, be talking with people and share a little something about herself that's personal. And next thing she knows, people are just gushing all their deepest
Mm-hmm.
secrets on her.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, your book is kind of confessing this story of your
Mm-hmm.
life. I'm curious if you get these people that feel now they know you because the work spoke to them, and if you get a lot of
I wouldn't
you
say
become a therapist.
well, I do like that role in my life anyways. I feel like I have a close-knit group of friends, and we are all sort of therapizing each other. So I don't mind that, and I do like talking about that stuff. I wouldn't say anyone who's like come up because of the book. Everyone's been so sweet and kind, and some people have talked about their their struggles or their parents' struggles or, things like that. And I mean, I guess as an extrovert myself, I love it because I do just find people endlessly fascinating as a humanist. Um, so I've really enjoyed that. And it's felt really positive about the book that I felt like, you know, it was hard living with her and that it could help have someone, it could mean something to someone really means a lot to me, I guess.
It gives a comforting sense of connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like nothing has felt like, yeah, like I'm just so excited people want to read my book too. Someone could say the craziest thing to me and I'd be so jazzed they bought my book. So, I mean, I guess that's also where I come from.
Yeah. I see that if I do a search of you online, you've done a fair amount of promotion. You've been getting out to shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little about how how you've gotten the word out?
Um, So Fantagraphics was great to get me kind of like they did a lot of promotion that really helps because they have a big platform and then they've helped get like some cool interviews and they got some great like articles written or reviews or whatever, so that those have been super helpful. And then they've gotten like set me up with some of the visits that I've done. Some of the visits like I paired with them where I was like, hey, I'm going to go to this town, can you set up a reading for me or can you set something up? So some of it like I've done and then they've like helped me just sort of facilitate or like get the word out about it. um and then just a lot, and then like having our like one of our promotion things has been this silly like besties tour. So like Tin and Jean and I, we taught together for so long, and now we all had Gene had a book that came out in May. I mean, he has a book out every 5 seconds, but one of his books came out in May, which is a book based on that game Clash of Clans. And so Tin was like, let's call it Besties Tour and let's like try and get as many things together as we can. And so that's been like a really fun, silly promotional idea because that guy has like, Tin has a lot of crazy ideas. He has his noodle eating videos, salad. He just does all these crazy things. And so
You guys made the besties T-shirt, right?
yeah, we have a besties tour t-shirt with fake dates. Like some of them are real and then some of them were just like, maybe we'll do this. And we like put it on the shirt. Um, so that's ridiculous. But I think having fun with it in that way has been really delightful. And again, just like having that sense of community that we've talked about, it's like like pumping each other up and selling each other's book. It always works better than selling your own book. It's more appealing to hear you talk about someone else's work than be like, buy my stuff. It's like, buy this guy's stuff. It's great.
Are
Um,
are you an extrovert, would you say?
yes.
Because when we signed together, I thought you were so good at getting people's attention and bringing them up to the table, and
Thanks.
you've got a great sense of humor, and you're sharp, and you can engage and get people excited, and I think, oh
I
man, that's helpful when you're
That's so
trying to
nice.
sell
I
books.
don't know if
Yeah.
that's my years in retail or like my years in teaching, or just like being old and not caring. I don't know. I really like conventions. I think it's really fun. I think it's also like I don't know. I just think it's really fun. Do you feel like you're an extrovert or an introvert?
I'm an introvert. I feel like I can do okay with
Yeah, you seem
people,
pretty good at talking.
but I need a
You get
break.
drained.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after a while. So
Yeah.
I enjoy one-on-one like this much better.
Yeah. 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 I definitely like love and get energy from other people. I think that that's the term of it, like what makes an extrovert an extrovert. But I mean, I love being by myself too. So I think it is like a little bit of a spectrum.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do love chatting people up.
Yeah. So you signed a second contract with Fantagraphics. How did that go?
Yeah. What's that?
How did that happen?
So while I was waiting for, I don't know, this was also something crazy. I didn't know anything about the publishing world because I had never had a book published, but it takes so long to get a book published. Did you find that? Did you know that?
It took 3.5 years from when I signed my contract with Fantagraphics until the Doris Danger book came out.
Yeah, but like when did you finish it to when it came out? That to
I
me is the craziest period.
I am at a lower rung on the ladder than you. And so I had been talking with them for maybe 5 or 6 years, and they
Mhm.
said, finish it and we'll sign the contract. So
Oh,
the
okay.
book was finished
Okay.
and the contract was signed, and I waited 3.5 years. Now I I've got to say also, I signed the contract right before the pandemic. Gary
Oh,
Groth got COVID, and
yeah.
I'm understanding that
Yeah,
there were
yeah, yeah.
circumstances that may have slowed the process down,
Right.
but
Right.
it was a very slow process. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't know how long it takes even. Yeah, it's just like because I think I finished it in early 2022 and it came out a year later. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk after what you just said. I just didn't know. I was like, then you get it the next month, right? Like I don't know anything. I'm an idiot. I like didn't know. So I like in the time that I was not that I went when I wasn't working on it to when the book came out, I was like, what am I going to do with myself? So I definitely like, and I didn't want to promote it too much too early. I don't know. It was just sort of, I was really in like a, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I started working on this next book was what I did.
Okay.
So then before, I think in January of this year, I think that's when I like talked to Eric. So my editor is Eric Reynolds, who's been great. And he and I was like, hey, I have this other idea. And I like had, I don't know, 10 or 15 pages. I was like, this is the idea. And he was like, great. Like, let's do it. I was like, great.
Wow. How
Yeah.
how
So
much were you showing him? Did you just tell him the idea and that was that, or did you show him some samples, or?
I had a little sample and I had like a plan for the book. Even though at this point I don't know how it's gonna end. I still don't have the total scope of it like I did with Ephemera because I was really, they didn't know me at all at that point. So I had to really have like a clean idea of like, here's how it's starting, here's the what's gonna make it compelling, and here's how it's ending. But with this book, so it's about high school in the 90s and it's told through notes. And I had the art style down and I had like how the basic, like this is how it will read, which is where you'll read these like panels that have not a lot of words, but some words. And then there'll be a note attached to it. And so the note sometimes will describe what you're seeing and sometimes it won't. And it's really about the truth telling that we do to ourselves and to others. And I mean, I'm just really interested in memory, obviously, and like what is real memory and what is not real memory. That's all very fascinating to me. I feel like I come from a family of liars. so, so I feel like that's fascinating. So I had sort of that down and I had my little pitch and he was just like, great.
The trust is there.
Yeah. So I feel
They
like,
know the
yeah,
quality of work you can do, and
yeah,
this is another thing a lot of people ask me, like, hey, uh, how did you get in with the company? And I say,
yeah,
well, for 15 years, every year I went face to face, reintroducing myself and showing them what work I am doing this year,
yeah, yeah,
showing them I am doing more work. I'm not just bogged down on 3 pages that I brought the year before.
yeah,
And, and even deeper than that, I'm looking at what books the companies put out and where I might
right.
fit. Have you done that? No. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Find out where you might fit.
yeah.
Find out who's putting it out. Get to know them. Build a relationship.
Well,
And
I thought that was really helpful just for other people who are looking to publish works, like all the things I didn't know, like I didn't know different publishers had different vibes. So like go look at their books on the shelf, like go look at how
yeah,
they're printed, like go see
yeah.
what kind of stuff they're doing. All of that was really interesting to me
Mm,
through the process. Like when I was trying to decide which publisher, even though I knew I was going to go with Fantagraphics, I was like, well, let me just check it out. So like Tin and I went around to like a bunch of different bookstores and just looked at the other publishers' work. And I was just sort of like, that was helpful to just sort of see. And then the other thing that my friend who's a literary agent helped was what other books would your book sit next to on a shelf? That was a question she asked. And that was part of my pitch with Ephemera was where would you see this? What would another reader also pick up? I thought that was really helpful if I was going to make a book now and didn't know it and didn't know how to get started, was just sort of how to pitch it.
yeah. Yeah, that's all great. Um, I've basically gone through all my questions I
Yeah,
have for
it's
you. I
fun.
like to finish with the big one. What do you see as kind of the big challenges with making comics, either along the way or with where you're at right now?
I mean, for me, it's just time. I don't know if you find
Hmm.
that, but I teach full-time high school. I'm the department chair and I teach an extra class. So I have like a very full work schedule. And then I have two kids. My kids are at an easy age now. They're 8 and 11. Um, and then I have, a partner and a mother-in-law and plants that I have to take care of. But so finding time is really like the hardest part for me, and just really making it a priority. The
Like
work
we
is
talked about earlier, right?
what's that?
Like we talked about earlier, how do
Yeah.
you make it part of the routine and make sure you just keep uh, shoveling into the machine?
And finding ways that like I think me I don't know if this is helpful to anyone, but like what makes me want to draw. So sometimes I'm so tired, but I'm like, all right, let me set a little scene for myself. I'm gonna get like a Diet Coke and I'm gonna get some chips and I'm gonna put on a movie that I like and then I'm gonna want to draw. Like I gotta like get myself like hyped up about it. Um on those days where I'm like, or I could just look at TikTok. Like,
Yeah, you got to not get distracted. Next thing you know,
yeah,
the little time you had is gone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. How,
Talk,
how about
talk,
for you?
yeah, I was going to say I turned 50 last year,
Mhm.
and I look at basically two comics projects took me 13 plus years. And
Mhm.
so I'm doing the math and going, I might only have four projects left in me if I'm so lucky. And
Yeah,
it really
that hit
was an
home. Yeah, it hits
awakening
home.
of yeah, time is precious.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that,
So
yeah, for sure. Just like
get
I'm so tired. How am I going to make it anymore?
get to that table and pump it out whenever you can.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, Brianna, this was so great
Yeah.
talking with
Thanks,
you.
bud.
Thanks so much for sharing some of your experiences, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the next con.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This was so fun to chat, and I can't wait
Good.
to see your next book.
All right. Take care.
Bye.